Okay, go for it.
This is Kevin Roth from kevinroth.org, and you're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to have more fun.
Well done. I will have more fun. I'm going to go hit the sauna and maybe do some walking, but thank you. Let me hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Keane, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I love to watch your hair blow in the wind, and I'm jealous. I'm in Vegas now, and it's kind of too damn hot to go outside, you know?
Well, we just had a little break in the heat wave. So it's supposed to be 88 today, but there's a nice breeze blowing, so I'm taking full advantage. And the dogs have been very barky this morning, so I said, let me sneak outside so that they don't interrupt with their unnecessary chatter.
Hey, whenever you get to be outside in nice weather, enjoy it and embrace it because you don't get to do it every day. So you are at Cherish and Bloom Coaching. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Yes. So I just co-authored a book about inner child work. Yeah. So that was super exciting. It just came out a few weeks ago. And so it's been full launch mode with that. And,
what's the name of the book? Say the name of the book. You got to say the name of the book.
I that fast I forgot the name of the book because I wasn't ready to talk about that.
It's okay. That's an excellent moment. You wrote a book and you forgot what it's called. That's great. I love it.
I completely forgot because it's been, in full transparency, it's been the craziest month. So the book launched. I went to a retreat at the beginning of June, came home from 1 week with a stomach bug, just got back from Disney after a week being there, and then just spent a 2 full day intensive doing an energy healing training to be a master instructor. So it's been
you've been busy,
full on busy, crazy. Yes. So that is why I'm like, at the moment, the name of the book has totally escaped me, but as we chat, it will come back to me.
We'll figure it out. You can look it up. We'll Google
figure it out. Yes.
Keane book. Oh, hey, there it is.
There it is.
That's awesome. I love it. But
so I'm really not this spacey. I promise you.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. It's The Inner Child book by Keane. We'll figure it out before the show is over.
Yes.
Excellent.
Oh, here it is. Got it.
Found it.
What I wish I had heard. Stories from our inner child.
See? That's a good title.
See, I knew it was The Inner Child book. Yes.
AKA The Inner Child book.
The Inner Child book.
But hey, as it turns out, nobody escapes childhood unscathed.
No, they don't.
Not psychologically, hopefully physically, but not that either. But anyway. Yes, there's a lot. Okay, so congratulations on being super busy and doing a book and figuring out the title of your book. So
hey, if that's all I had to do today, the day is done. Check. The day is done.
Yes, there you go. Okay, let's go back in time because this is Vroom Vroom Veer. We have to get into your story. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Delaware.
Okay.
In Newark, Delaware, like pretty nondescript. A lot of people live here because it's cheaper to live here and commute to Philadelphia or to New York City. So we're like, it's the tri-state area. We're like smack dab in the middle of Baltimore and Philadelphia. So urban, but also rural. We have amazing beaches. That's mostly what we're known for is the beaches.
Wow. Interesting. So Delaware is one of those tiny little places that you can visit and not even know you were there.
Pretty much. We're the second smallest state. And so yes, most people, when you say, where are you from? And I say Delaware, they go, Delaware. Like, where is that?
Love it. Yes. I have a similar situation because my hometown is a place called Menominee, Michigan. Right?
Oh,
and then nobody wants to say Menominee. They go, what?
Right? Because they don't want to get it wrong.
Exactly. Delaware. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, Menominee. I usually get that. There was a song that Muppets sang when I was a kid. Menomina. Da, da, na, na.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's about the best thing you can do. Or my buddy, when I was in high school, called in to the what was that guy's name? Larry King Live? Was talking to Cheech of Cheech and Chong. And he said, "Hi, this is Ben Strong, and I'm from Menominee." And Cheech says, "Oh, is that where you can only have one wife?" Just off the top of his head. Yeah. Yes. You could tell he's the comedy brain. Right. I was like, oh, that's the best. And he recorded it. So we have that forever.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway, we digress. Okay. So you grew up in Delaware. So what was high school like for little Kim?
Ooh, high school was not really a great time. Okay. So that is one time of life where I'm like, yeah, I would never, ever go back and do that ever again. So freshman year started, freshman year was fine. It was like awkward freshman year. And then sophomore year, boys came into the picture.
Right.
And then little did I know that was the start of an abusive relationship that would last 5.5 years.
Oh, no.
So high school boyfriend, not good. And then that really put a rift between my parents and me. So my dad kicked me out. And I didn't talk to my dad for 5.5 years.
Wow.
So high school is not the best time.
Bumpy road. So you had boyfriend abuse.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I did.
Wow. That's a new one on me. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of like uncles, dads, moms, brothers, but boyfriend abuse. Yikes.
Yeah.
And in high school.
Yes.
Ew.
I know.
Yeah.
So we started dating just before we turned 16. And then he had just turned 16 and I still had a couple months until I turned 16. So we started dating in 98. And then I finally left in 2003. So in that time, there was physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. He had been in jail, not because I had pressed charges on him, but because of other bad behavior choices that he made.
Wow.
And I stayed while he was in jail. And I even said yes to the jailhouse proposal when I really wanted to scream no and run.
Right.
And it took him getting out to do the same things that he did before he went to jail for me to finally be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have the big traumatic escape story or did you just leave?
No, I just left. So actually his cousin, so he got out of jail and I was kind of back with him because I was afraid, A, to leave, and B, I didn't really know what life was like without him because we had been together since we were basically 15.
Right.
And so I was driving him and then he was like, oh, we have to stop at my house real quick. He went in, his younger cousin came out and said, did you know that he's pregnant or his girlfriend is pregnant? And I'm thinking, excuse me, like I'm the girlfriend and I'm not pregnant. So,
wow.
What girlfriend and who, like what?
Right.
And she was like, yeah, they're going to have a baby. And I was just like, you have to get out of my car and I'm leaving. So I just drove away. And before he came back outside, and then I went home and he called my house and my mom was out of town that weekend. And so he had a friend drive him to my house. He barged in, stole the engagement ring, punched me in the stomach, spit in my face. And then I literally chased him out of the house, screaming at him never to come back and at his friend to never bring him back.
Yeah.
And that was how it ended.
That was it?
That was it.
Wow.
So I can't really fully say that was it because, like, of course, he kept calling periodically.
Right.
He went back to jail and had the girlfriend at the time calling, like three-way calling me from jail, like with him begging to plead me back. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. A, we are never, ever getting back together.
That was
so before
over,
Taylor Swift
right?
came It's so over before Taylor Swift came out with that song. And then I just say to the girl on the other line, like, hello, you are in a relationship with him and you are listening to him beg me to take him back while he's still technically with you. Like, what is going on here?
Yikes.
That's a hard no.
Right.
And she just kind of laughed it off.
Wow.
And so, I hung up. So it took a while for him to finally get the message, a couple months, maybe almost a year. Cause I can't even say that was like the last time that he showed up at my door.
Right.
And again, like me chasing him away. But so that I basically just drove away. And then it took him a little bit of time to actually fully get the message.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yikes. So that's, I've heard this before. And when you reflect on that, it's got to be like, you're beating yourself up, right? Like saying, what the hell was I thinking?
Yes.
Yes. And I've heard that before. Yeah. Yes.
For a long time I did. For a very long time I did.
Yeah.
Because I wasted a lot of time with him,
right.
and I missed out on a lot of things. So I didn't go to college right out of high school. I had enrolled in college, and because my grades had dropped during high school, they revoked my acceptance to college after I had already had my schedule picked. I had all my fees paid, and they wanted me to come speak in front of a committee of people and get these letters of recommendation. And I was angry at the world, and I was like, absolutely not. Somehow my mom or my grandmother had the dean of admissions, and this is a huge university, call me, and I told the dean to kiss my and hung up on him.
I bet you didn't say feet mom, either.
No, I didn't say feet. It's something that you sit on.
I get it.
And so my mom was like literally ready to come through my bedroom wall and murder me in that moment. She's like, I can't believe you did that. But I was like, no, thank you. Like, I'm not begging someone for them to take my hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So, sorry, there's a plane flying over. I'll mute for a second. Here, I was worried about the dogs chattering, and now that I have airplanes flying.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm glad you muted, because I just made a note and checked the time so I can go trim it out. So don't worry about it. Or leave it in.
Perfect.
I'll blank out the blank part, but the comment will be fun.
Yeah. So I didn't go to college right out of high school. And there were things I missed out on in high school. I missed out on a dance because I was grounded, like Bell's Balls, like a winter formal. And there was like senior weekend at the beach. Like, I didn't go to that. I didn't do study abroad trips.
Right.
My husband's experience growing up was vastly different from mine. And so in high school, he did a study abroad trip to Spain. He talked about it all the time. So there were so many things that I missed out on because of that. And so for a long time, yes, I did beat myself up thinking like, what in the world was I doing? Why did I do that? But after doing a lot of work, I now see how I ended up in that situation. And I also see how high school boyfriend became the type of person that he was. It was really a recipe for a disaster with the two of us coming together. So,
wow. But you eventually got like therapy, right?
Yes. So I did finally start college when I was 21, and then finished college when I lived in New Hampshire with, at the time, my boyfriend, but now my husband. And so I joined an organization called Mentors in Violence Prevention. And it was all about being an active bystander. And doing that, there was a lot of talking about my situation. And so I started going to see the therapist on campus at school. And that was helpful. But then I didn't do therapy after that. Once I graduated, that was done.
Okay.
And I just kind of navigated life, not realizing that there was still things there.
Unresolved issues, as we said.
Yes.
Lots of stuff.
Oh, lots of stuff. Yes. And it wasn't until actually I left my teaching career and had this identity crisis of like, oh my gosh, if I'm not a teacher, now who am I?
Right.
Even though I was a wife and a mom and so many other things, but I was so confined to that one label, that one hat of teacher hat. And
it is usually related to work. Like that is like, I mean, if it's not hair, it's, it's probably work. Yeah, I get it.
Yes.
We strongly identify because it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I'm already what I am. The real question should be, what would you like to do? But we attach that I am a what, and it becomes us in our minds. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
yes.
Right.
And I was being a teacher before I even had ever been to school. So my dad has this memory of me being maybe around 3, and I was in my bedroom and I had my stuffed animals lined up, and I was teaching them and playing school, but he was really dumbfounded that I even knew what to do because I had always been in in-home daycare. So I had never been in a school setting to see like an actual classroom teacher running a classroom with a group of students. Wow. But there I was with my little,
that's great.
So it's like it's like
in
past
my head.
life.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like past life experience that I brought into this life thinking that, it was meant to be for this life, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so it's always been my nature.
Yeah.
It's always been in my nature to teach. And so when that came crashing down around me from burnout, after only being a teacher for 6 years, I really struggled with adjusting to being a stay-at-home mom and what that would look like and sound like and all of those things. And so then I started having really dark thoughts. about maybe just ending it or just running away. But I couldn't allow that to be the legacy that I left for my daughters because I had two littles at the time. And so I thought, ooh, maybe I really should go talk to someone. And so that was really when my therapy journey really fully started. And I will say that through all the turmoil of the high school boyfriend, there were short periods of time where my parents had tried to force me to go to therapy. But it didn't last long because I was completely resistant and it just was not serving anyone.
Right.
Because they wanted me to be in therapy, but they weren't willing to come to therapy with me. So it was like, Kim's the problem. That's right. So you have to go to therapy.
You go fix you. Yes.
You go fix you, but we have nothing to do with this. So this is all you being a bad teenager, you rebellious girl, you.
Wow. And, I get it.
So it wasn't really until I was, in my early 30s when I started therapy and really started diving into things. And I naively went thinking she was like, oh, Kim, no problem. It's just an identity crisis. 3 easy ways to fix it. Steps 1, 2, and 3, and you're good to go.
One weekend retreat should do it.
Yes, that's it. Done.
Unfortunately, that doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
So I was completely blindsided. It was kind of that moment of like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? This was not what I signed up for. And so in that time, she was really great at labeling me. Oh, do you realize that you're codependent? Nope, never heard that word before. So I Googled it when I got home and could check yes to all the boxes.
Okay, wow.
And that was devastating. Yeah. And so her explanation, I was like, I don't even know what that is. And she's like, it's when you take on other people's emotions. Well, I'm probably more of an empath than I am codependent. But, and then it was like, do you consider yourself to be an anxious person? Nope. Never thought I was, but yep, could check yes to all the boxes again. So It was just like this constant journey of labeling, oh, you suffer from childhood emotional neglect. So each time she gave me a new label, the tools I'll say that she gave me were really not helpful. For instance, with the codependency, she said, oh, just pretend to carry invisible scissors in your pocket. And when you feel the strings of codependency attaching, you can just cut those strings away with your invisible scissors.
That's pretty silly.
Okay, great. Or she was like, or you can spray yourself with invisible cooking spray. And then the codependency will just slide right off.
Wow.
No?
Wow.
So, because you have to, know that you're being codependent.
Yeah.
You have to be fully aware of what it looks like, feels like, sounds like to be codependent. Who you're being codependent with, what's triggering the codependency, all of those things.
Right.
And so those were the tools that I really needed from her that I didn't have. And then maybe I could use the invisible scissors. I don't know. So it was like this. So then it was, into this rabbit hole of Googling and reading books and doing workbooks on my own and reflecting with her in my next therapy session. And then the next label. And then, with the childhood emotional neglect, it was this deep dive into John Bradshaw's inner child work and doing that. Okay. And so this went on for 2 years, in addition to her pressuring me to take medication. And I just couldn't allow myself to do that because I already saw myself as a failure because I only made it in the teaching world for 6 years. And I thought I would teach until I was in my 90s and they'd force me to retire and be like, get out, you wrinkly old lady, before you die in front of the kids from break a hip.
That's great.
And when that didn't happen, that was like the epic fail for me. So I felt like a failure because of that. I felt like a failure because I wasn't loving being a stay-at-home mom. I felt like a failure because I, wasn't loving being a homemaker either. And, my husband's at work all day, working this crazy stressful job. And I should be grateful to be home cleaning and vacuuming and running kids here and everywhere. But
that's really isolating. It's really isolating. Yeah.
It is.
Especially now and lockdown and oof.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And this was back in 2014. So this was before lockdown. I wasn't on social media. Not that social media can feel less isolated, but sometimes it does the opposite. But
yeah.
So this all started back in 2014. And so because I felt like such a failure, I did not tell anyone that I was in therapy. I did not tell anyone I was struggling. I did not want anyone to know. I was super embarrassed. So I did this mental struggle alone with a therapist who was basically gaslighting me every session into feeling guilty and irresponsible for not taking the medication.
Wow.
So I never did give in. I never did.
Good for you. somewhere along the road, you found some power. Yes.
Yes. And not to say that medication is bad, because, you know, there are some people who do need the medication.
Just not
but
for
I
you.
Just,
yeah.
It was not for me. And so I knew that the things that I was struggling with were learned behaviors, and I was going to have to take the time to unlearn them. And that's why I knew that medicine wasn't the option. It wasn't that I was having a depression from a chemical imbalance in my brain or a hormonal issue or anything like that. I just knew that this was all learned, and it was going to take time for me to unlearn it.
You have to unpack all that stuff.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And so she would often say to me, well, don't you want the stairs to climb your way out of the ditch so you're not clawing your way out every single day? And I was like, I will claw my way out of this ditch every day if it means that I get to the other side of this and figure out how to do life without feeling like this.
Right.
And so for 2.5 years, I went to that therapist. And then finally on the last session, I had enough. I reached my breaking point. I decided I wasn't going back to her any longer and knew that I had to do something else. And I will say the gift that she did give me was teaching me about meditation and yoga. So early, so I will say that. So she did tell me, you know, maybe try meditation, try doing some yoga.
Yeah.
And
yoga is huge. Oh my God.
Yoga is huge. And so those two practices really opened me up to the holistic world of having other things to rely on, tools to use besides meditation.
Right. So like,
so I would say that was the gift.
For me, well, thanks for sharing that story, because that's huge. Yeah. And I think the wind might have blown your microphone. What are you using for your microphone?
Oh, well, I have my AirPods.
Okay.
Yep. And then I have my snowball mic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It just got quiet. You know, I can hear you, but you sound like you're on a phone all of a sudden or something.
I think I'm still all hooked up. Let me see.
Okay.
It doesn't say I'm not.
I can hear you, but maybe our bandwidth is just taking a hit. But that's okay. Let's just press through it. Whatever. Okay. It's a podcast. Yeah, for me, I was going to say, like, I was spending a lot of time with all those spiritual books and spiritual teachers, Deepak Chopra and Oprah and Eckhart Tolle and all those guys. And I had an opportunity to go to massage school. Yeah. And I actually did like Reiki level 1 when I was in massage school. It was awesome. So yeah, definitely. And, you know, I was also starting a meditation practice that, you know, I think everybody goes through this. It's like you ebb and flow with meditation kind of idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I've ebbed and flowed more with yoga.
Okay.
So I've meditated every day.
Good for you.
For almost 6 years.
Excellent. So it sounds like it's working.
Yeah. And that was the thing that I noticed very early on. Even though initially I didn't meditate regularly, I noticed that when I did, it was helping. I no longer was ready to bite everyone's heads off in like a split second.
Yeah.
I actually had the ability to take a breath.
Yeah.
And assess things and then move forward. Yeah. More than I had ever had in the past. So I could see that the meditation was helpful. And I know that was also in conjunction with the yoga too.
Yeah. Let's talk about like, I just heard a YouTube video, I think yesterday. He was a psychiatrist or a psychologist, one or the other, but also from India. So grew up with the meditation sort of practice, sort of just coming through osmosis in his culture, you know?
Yeah.
And he just described meditation in such a very clinical, mechanical way. And I loved it because he just made it like so simple to understand, right? It's like, you focus on one thing. It might be a candle or it might be a mantra. But the point of that is to change the state of your brain in consciousness, right? You're going to this other place where your mind is quiet. And I was like, yeah, that's it. You know, that's it. And you can keep going deeper, but basically that's what you're doing. And the effect is, you know, basically what you just said. You're less now when you're off your mat or wherever you're done meditating in your regular busy ass life, you've got a moment before you react. Yes. So talk a little bit about that.
Yes. And I will say that a lot of people, I think, are afraid to meditate, or they think it's not for them because they think, oh, I can't turn, like my brain never turns off. My brain is always thinking.
I'm going to go ahead and say that's true. Yes. That is true, and because you can't just flip a switch. You're not a robot. It's like you say, I know I'm interrupting, but I have a thought.
No, you're fine.
So like this same guy was like, you can't make yourself sleep. You can lay down. You can go, but if you lay there and go, okay, sleep now, it's not going to happen, right? It's one of these things that is outside of our conscious control. Meditation, same deal, right? All you can do is show up and do the thing and wait for the state to happen, just like sleep. You know, and I said that, I was like, okay, there you go. That's why people say I can't do that. And they're right. All you can do is show up and do the thing. Yes.
Right. And so even though I've been meditating every day for so long, and sometimes twice a day, and maybe sometimes 3 times a day, my brain, when I sit down on my cushion, it still goes crazy town and never stops thinking. But the key with the meditation is it's okay. It's not to judge the thoughts. It's just to acknowledge the thought, let it pass, and return to the focus of your breath. So,
like doing push-ups in your head.
Yes. And so, when I first started meditating, sometimes I would stare at a candle flame with my eyes just gently closed and just watch it flicker. Sometimes it would just, I would just put my hand on my stomach and I'd feel it rise and fall as I inhaled and exhaled. Sometimes, I love Tyler Henry. He's the medium on the E channel. He does readings for celebrities. He scribbles. Sometimes I'll just scribble on a piece of paper with a pencil.
I like that.
And so it's really just about acknowledging that, yes, the thoughts are still going to come. You can't stop them, but you just acknowledge it with no judgment. And then you return back to what you were focusing on, whether it's your breath or the candle flame or the scribbling on the paper.
Right.
And then just continue with your practice. And other people think like, oh, you have to meditate for half an hour. You don't. You can do a 2-minute meditation. You can do a 10-minute meditation. Yes, you can meditate for 2 hours. I don't know how we have time for that.
Right.
But a meditation can be something just so simple, even as just 5 breaths.
Yeah.
And that could be a meditation.
Stoplight. I think everybody should be mandatorily taking a deep breath at every stoplight. And look around. There's probably, wind blowing through trees.
Or airplanes that continually fly over.
Something. Just take a breath and notice that you're alive in this weird world, Yes. Okay. So let's get into this whole thing. I have comments about yoga. So let's talk about yoga. Yeah. So I got into yoga, about the same time I did like my massage school, because a lot of those people were into yoga. And I got into like, what I want to say is like, why I love yoga is 2 things. Mostly the community, right? It's great.
Very strong.
Very strong. Because if you continually show up to the same yoga class, you're making friends, which is great. And they're all in the same space with you, kind of like headspace, so it's almost like an automatic connection. I'm retired military, so I'm going to yoga classes on my Air Force base.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. So there's always like different people showing up. Oh, they're from out of town. Okay, that's okay. But love it. But more than anything, I think community number 1, but number 2, just, what's the word? Less anxiety, less like monkey brain talk in my head for like many, many hours, almost like a day. If I do 1 yoga session in a week, after that, I'm good for a couple days where I'm a lot less reactive.
Yeah, because it really connects the mind, body, and the spirit.
Right.
So it gives you that time on your mat where you don't have to think about anything else. You don't have to worry about what the person next to you is doing on their mat, which was really hard at first.
Right.
Because we live in this society of comparisonitis. So I wasn't nearly as flexible as someone else, and I would have instantly feel like, oh, I wasn't doing it good enough because I couldn't do the full expression of the pose.
Right.
But the beautiful thing about yoga is it really teaches self-compassion. So you don't have to do the fullest expression of the pose to be able to get the benefit of that time on your mat. And I think that's why it gives you such a long time of this like, I'll say ease or flow or peace. And it's because you've taken that time for yourself to reconnect the mind, body, and the spirit. Right. And so now you're in that moment, those next few days, it's like you're fully aligned with who you really are.
Yeah. I think people are, Jim Carrey said something that was hilarious and profound, as Jim Carrey is. But he noticed at some point when he was in the midst of a stand-up routine, he was like, these people want to be free from concern.
Don't we all the time?
Yes. Yeah. Well, maybe not all the time, but we want, bits of that, right? That's what you get when you're on your mat and on your cushion. That's what that other state that you're seeking, I think that's what he's talking about. That like, I'm just like, everything's okay now.
And I can do this. I can get through the next.
And it doesn't matter what I look like. And it doesn't. Yeah. One of the yoga instructor that I had in Southern California, she was awesome because she would just coax me into doing something I didn't want to do by saying, but Jeff, if you do it, it'll be really funny either way. And she knew that would get me, right? Oh, now I have to try it because people will laugh at me. And I like that, that to me is fun, right? If I do something and screw up and people laugh, yay, I've won. Anyway, so let's talk about after you finish with your therapy and you start getting into yoga and meditation. So talk about that journey into the holistic world.
Yeah. So I went to a holistic festival at a local community college. And I went there thinking like, it's called the Mind, Body, Spirit Fest. And in my mind, that meant yoga and meditation. So I show up on Friday night with my yoga mat and my yoga clothes. And I was super excited. I was like, I'm going to learn more about yoga and meditation. Great. And I walk in the door and I quickly was a deer in headlights. I was like, oh, okay, this is really not about yoga and meditation. This is about things that I know nothing about. I was like, oh, let me go put the yoga mat back in the car because no one else has the yoga mat on their shoulder, just me. So hold on, guys. I'll be right back.
Sure.
And so that was when I saw crystals for the first time and Reiki practitioners and tarot card readers and aura photographers and essential oils and all of these things that people were using to connect their mind, body, and spirit, but also to help them live more authentically to who they were and letting go of the things that were holding them back. And I was like, mind blown. So I was like a kid in the candy store. I couldn't get enough. I was like, crystal bracelet? Yes, please. I don't know how to pick the crystal I need, but sure, I'll take one. Reiki session? Yes, please.
Yes, please.
And I was blown away because the lady just knew that my name was Kim. She knew nothing else about me. And as I laid down on her table and she starts, placing her hands on me and connecting with my energy and all of that, she was like, oh, you have two little blonde girls.
Oh, wow.
And I was kind of like, wow. How do you know that? Oh, my God. Like, that's kind of scary. And then she was like, as she continued with the session, it was just short. It was a little 20-minute session, like an intro session. She said, you often feel like a chameleon. And the waterworks just started. I was like, oh, my God, how did you know? And
you feel like a chameleon? Is that what you said?
Yeah. And so a lot of life, I was really good at being a chameleon. So I could adapt to one set of rules at my dad's house, the different set of rules at my mom's house. How do you interact with this group of friends? I could do that. How did I do this? I was just constantly adapting and changing to fit into the surroundings that I was in at that moment.
Right.
Never really allowing my true self to be seen because that wasn't safe. Right. And so when I got up from her table, I just felt like this immense weight had been lifted from me. And I was just immediately hooked. I was like, okay, I need more of whatever she's doing. I need more of that. Because I just felt so empowered after that 20-minute session. I had a tarot card reading. It was mostly about my kids, but that's okay because they described both of my daughters to a T. You have one daughter who is a very old soul, who's a writer. You have who will be a writer, and that my older daughter, she wrote a 300-page novel during the pandemic when she was only in 5th grade. They're like, your other daughter is, she is going to have a clairvoyant gift. she hasn't come into that yet, but she's definitely into the holistic realm. She loves crystals and cards and Reiki and sound healing. So she's definitely
And this is all coming just out of the cards. That's amazing.
Yeah, just out of a tarot card reading. So it was so interesting and so fascinating and I did a John of God crystal healing session, which now John of God, we don't say that. It's just a chakra crystal bed because he did some horrible things in his community. There's a whole Netflix documentary about it, but that's what it used to be called. But now it's just the politically correct, nice way of saying it is a crystal chakra healing bed. I did that. I was just like, I was bebopping all over that place and was like, I need more. So the lady who did Reiki, she taught holistic classes at the local college. I started with an angel class and a crystal class. Then I did my Reiki attunements and then became a Reiki master. I took her Native American medicine wheel class. Like just anything that she had to offer, I was there for it because as I learned and I was able to use those things for myself, I started to feel the difference in doing the energy work, clearing out that stagnant energy from past wounds, from previous generations, from my own childhood, from the high school boyfriend situation, from the career, all of those things. And I was just so incredibly powerful that I was just completely blown away.
Yeah, yeah. And you started getting some life coaching too.
Yes, I did.
So let's do a compare contrast to therapist versus life coach. Okay. Now, not all therapists are your therapist.
Correct.
Maybe it just wasn't a good fit.
Yes, it was not a good fit. And I will say that there are a lot of people that I've spoken to who have had a similar experience with therapy, but then I know people who have had an amazing experience with therapy. So I think it's just really about finding the right therapist for you and how they run their sessions and all those things. But from my experience, the difference between therapy and life coaching. So in therapy, it was sitting in the chair across from the therapist and me telling her the things that I was struggling with. And then her saying to me, well, how did that make you feel? Well, tell me about that time when. And I would just constantly retell the story over and over and over and over with never, it was like a relief, but never really feeling like I had the tools to then be able to navigate that when it happened again.
Right.
Outside of therapy. So then the next week would come and it was like, Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Like a broken record because
I tried the invisible scissors. They didn't work.
And she would get frustrated with me. I'm giving you tools for your invisible toolbox and you're not using them. Maybe it's time I find you someone else because I'm a social worker and I'm a problem solver and you're not working with me to solve your own problem.
Wow.
So, but then with life coaching, it was vastly different. It was not getting so much stuck in the story of things. It was really more of like, okay, here are all of Tim's puzzle pieces from all of her life experiences, and her puzzle is put back in the wrong order. So we're going to look at all of the puzzle pieces that she has. We're going to take only in the important details from each of those stories and use those to put the puzzle pieces back together. So it was more about mindset work without getting stuck in the story, without getting stuck in the labels of codependency, anxiety, childhood, like none of that.
Okay.
Recognizing that those things, I was running patterns because of those things and learning how to interrupt the pattern to create a more serving pattern with mindset work and things like that. So it was vastly different. It wasn't so much about tell me about that time when. It was, okay, let's look at this situation. Let's dissect it. Let's see the pattern and let's see what strategy you can use right now with your current mindset to give you the relief that you're looking for. So that way you have success to then build on for long-term success and really create that independence. So like with therapy, I felt very dependent upon the therapist, but with life coaching,
it's more like a co-creative kind of thing.
Yes. And it was really about creating this sense of independence. So like I, after 8 sessions, basically knew I had Kim's, like, I'll say instruction manual. And I could be like, oh, okay, this is triggering for me. I know how to get through this. I can do it. And I did it. And then that gave me more confidence to be able to do it as things continued on and other triggers would happen, other situations would happen. And so then it was like, oh, I can do this. I don't need a life coach. Like I've got this. I have the tools now. Nice. So it's like dependence versus independence.
Right. Yeah. It seems like the end game with a life coach is a much shorter term kind of, it's just like, let's deal with what you're dealing with now, right? Today, yesterday, last week, talk about it and then figure out what to do about it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And know that it's going to, whatever other similar situations happen, you're going to be able to use these same tools to get through those situations. Because at the end of the day, it's, you know, how are these things meeting your emotional needs and recognizing the things that you can and cannot control.
Totally. Yeah. See, that's huge.
Yeah.
That thing about the 12 steps and step 1, like that's what I think is missing from, you know, atheists. No, I'm sorry, atheists. You know, I love you too, but I just saw, what was this show? There's this show and it was called Evil. Okay. And so there's a priest, a psychologist, and then some tech guy, right? And they all work for the Catholic Church and they go like evaluate weird shit. Right? So the priest was trying to help the two atheists, right? They're both scientists, so they don't have any sort of spiritual connection, but they want forgiveness. So he tells one guy to go ask for forgiveness from the post office. It was the best scene ever. He just finds a mailman, bumps into him on purpose, and says, "I'm sorry."
Mailman said, "I accept your apology." Yes. And then done. He had his forgiveness
from a higher power. I was like, that's the best.
Yes. Again, if only it were that easy.
If only if it were that easy. That's what TV does, right? It gives you a little hint.
TV magic.
Yeah, but you know, all joking aside, that higher story or the higher power, you know, whatever that is, you can be an atheist and say the unknown or the cosmos or the universe, whatever the hell you want to label it. You don't control everything in the world. Yeah.
I mean, we like to think we do, but we really don't.
No. And I was doing that. I realized that, you know, it was just like, I'm reading this book. This is a guest that I didn't have. Her person that was trying to promote her book sent me a copy of her book. I love it. I don't think she's going to be on my show, but she helped me a lot. I'm still reading the PDF and I'm loving it. So yeah, anyway, it's great. So
you'll have to do a solo episode about the book and how it helped you.
There you go. Oh, I don't know if I could do that. I would. You and I could do that. I have I struggle with just me. Like, this is easy. I could do this all day, right? But like showing up and talking to a screen or reading, I would feel like a dork.
So, okay, how about this? You send me the highlights of the book and how it helped you. We'll get back on and I'll ask you the questions and then you answer them.
Okay. See, I could do that.
There you go.
I could do that. Okay. But it was great. I mean, I've seen other people do this whole, like, I'm going to turn the 12 steps into tools for everybody. I love that idea. I'm going to keep reading the book. I'm only on step 3. And it's been
12 is a lot of steps.
Yes, it is.
One step at a time. That's all you can do is one step at a time.
There you go. So let's talk about now what you're doing now and how you're helping people. And you've got a long list of stuff. I know what a life coach is, a sound healer. I've done sound baths. So that
yes, aren't they lovely?
Yeah, they're the best. I want more. I don't live in LA anymore. You know, Vegas is kind of bereft of spiritual stuff. You really have to go digging. Yes. Reiki master. I did level 1, like emotional freedom technique, right? That's EFT tapping, right? What's IET?
So IET is integrative energy therapy. And so that was what I just did this whole intensive this weekend.
Wow.
And so it's hands-on healing, but it uses angel energy.
Okay.
So I'll say it's similar to Reiki. The hand placements are different.
Okay.
But it focuses on taking out the negative energy, negative experiences from your cellular memory and replacing them with more serving things. So taking out fear and replacing it with confidence.
Wow.
Taking out stress and replacing it with calm.
Neat.
And so it's just another form of hands-on healing, but it uses angel energy rather than, I'll say, like Reiki is like more of a universal energy.
Yeah, that source kind of thing. Yeah. Right. Okay. Interesting. So let's talk about like what you're doing in your practice now. I know you just wrote your book.
Yeah.
The Inner Child book.
One chapter. Yeah.
Oh, only one chapter.
Only one chapter.
Okay, cool.
So just that chapter was sharing my journey of how I did inner child work when I got the lovely label of childhood emotional neglect added to the list of things.
Right.
So in my practice now, I do individual sections. I also do sessions for a few local healing centers, group sessions with Reiki and IET, and I do sound baths for them. I also do group sessions with tapping for them. I do tapping. I do it all individually with my own practice, but I have a few centers, healing centers locally that I also work with.
That's awesome.
And provide those services for as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love it. So, hey, Kim, this has been a blast. Did we miss anything? Do we need to go back and
I think we covered it all.
We did, and now we've got a date for show number 2.
Done. I'm game. I'm here for
I'm
it.
in.
I'm here for it. I like to talk, so I'm here for it.
Yes, and I hope we get to see this background again, because this is like real brick behind you.
Yeah.
Or are those actual natural stones?
They are. So, would you like to hear a little bit about my house before we jump
I want to hear all about your house, because it's awesome.
So, thanks. So, I live in a 300-year-old farmhouse.
Wow. Yeah,
it was built in 1730. So what you're seeing here is actually the detached garage. So this is where I park my car.
Okay. Wow.
So this is the patio. So this way, which you can't see, is actually the TV room. So I connected with the lady who grew up here. Her family has owned the house and the property for almost 200 years.
Oh my goodness.
So this structure behind me actually burnt down at one point. So this has been rebuilt. And I think it was her uncle who rebuilt it, or her great uncle. And he was like, it's going to be so stable that no fire will ever take it down again. But it actually used to be inside of the barn, or inside of the structure actually used to be an outhouse at one point.
Okay.
So like there's a little slope in the garage floor where I guess that was
they had to fill in the hole.
Structure. Yes. So
that's
so
great.
This way is my kitchen, and that part of the house was built into the 1800s.
Wow.
So it still has like all of our doorknobs over there for our Victorian doorknobs that are like an exterior latch. It doesn't go in the middle of the door like knobs and latches today. It's like on the outside of the door. So the lock, when you close the door, it's on the door frame.
Gotcha.
So it's an exterior lock. So
that's awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So the TV room was added on in the 60s, and then you can't see this way, but over there is my barn. So the big vision is to make the barn into a healing center / retreat center, because we also have a pond that way in the woods.
That's awesome.
There will be, the vision is to clean it out. So trees have fallen into the pond. So one family owned this house that we bought it from, this family who owned it for like 24 years. And they didn't take care of it. So trees have fallen into the pond.
Right.
There's a bat infestation in the barn. So I'm trying to get the bats to go to the bat houses. We'll have to get someone to come clean out the trees from the pond. So
can you live trap bats? That's great. Wow. Yeah.
I don't know if you can or not. I don't want to take the bats completely away or hurt them, because I want them here because they eat the bugs. I just want them to relocate from the barn to the bat houses.
Gotcha.
So we've hung 2 bat houses.
You just have to figure out what bat bait is.
They don't like it. So the joke is bat 3, Kim 0, because we've tried bat baiting them to the bat houses, and they're not having any problems. They're like, lady, we've been in this barn for 50 years.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not leaving. We are not leaving.
This is our barn, lady.
So you should plan accordingly, that this is our barn. So this is like the money pit with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long, the movie from the 80s. It is a marathon of never-ending work.
So those rocks on that wall behind you, are those like river rocks or like just cut stone? What is that?
I believe it is cut stone, and it looks like someone painted it white at some point in time.
Right. So there's a difference. So there's some sort of like what do they call that? The filler. I can never remember what that is.
It's plaster. So it looks like plaster. They whitewashed. Wow. They tried to whitewash the plaster.
Yeah.
But there's like gray rocks and brown, and gray and brown mixed together. So, it matches the stone walls that we have. There are a few. I
just want to go like hug the rock. My buddy helped me change the floor out in my master bedroom. And he is like, next level good at like contractor stuff. He was a professional contractor. So, he had the laser finder and, doing it, the trowel. And I'm just like in awe. I'm like, he can do shit.
Yeah, I just stand to watch. I'm like, exactly. Your ways.
Yeah, but
your ways.
I could tell he's a little bit older than me. And we were doing this in 2019. And he was just really tired because I was working him too hard. So when we got to the toilet area and he was like, I don't know how I'm going to cut in there because the tile that we bought was really long and wide. And he's like, why don't we just go with the river rock and we'll make you like a little kitty litter box.
Perfect.
That is the best because now, because that river rock just sort of like it's cold when the rest of the house is hot. So I can just go ground on that river rock. I feel stupid because I don't need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, you're sitting there.
Yeah, or sit, But mostly I'll just sit there for a little while and go, It's awesome. So
yeah, it is.
I envy your rock situation there at your house.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to.
Your purse strings will not envy it, though.
Yeah, I bet. Yes, the money pit.
The money pit, yes.
Kim, this has been a blast. I look forward to round 2. So you can be found at, is it still KimKeane.com?
It is.
Okay. So Kim Keane is spelled KimKeane.com. So this has been a blast. Everybody go check out Kim Keane, and we look forward to hanging out in the retreat center when the bats are gone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.